Today's topic is one that almost everyone has heard of, but almost nobody can explain in plain English. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. Is it just a fancy carbon calculator for big corporations, or is it something much bigger? Here's the thing. Right now, most companies cannot tell you their carbon footprint, not because they don't want to or don't care, but because the data is a complete mess. It lives in utility bills, fuel logs, supplier spreadsheets, HR systems. It's scattered across different departments, different formats, and different people who never talk to each other. Sustainability teams spend most of their time just hunting down data instead of doing something useful with it. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability is a platform that takes that chaos and turns it into a clear, actionable picture. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what it actually is, how the three building blocks work together, and why real companies are already using it to save time, money, and the planet. The messy reality of sustainability data. We have to understand the problem before we can understand the solution. So here it is. Imagine you work for a mid-sized company with a few thousand employees. Someone in leadership says, "We need to report our carbon footprint for this year." Simple question, right? Not even close. That one question triggers a chain reaction. You need electricity data from every office and factory, fuel consumption from the fleet vehicles, air travel data from HR, waste disposal records from facility managers, and supplier data from procurement. Each of these lives in a different system, managed by a different person, in a completely different format. One facility manager sends you a PDF of last year's utility bills. Another sends an Excel spreadsheet with columns in a different order. Procurement gives you a CSV export from their supplier portal, and HR has a separate system for tracking business travel. None of them talk to each other, and none of them use the same units. So you get electricity in kilowatt hours, natural gas in therms, and fuel in gallons. You're basically trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces come from different boxes. And regulations like the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, are making accurate reporting mandatory, not optional. Miss the deadline or get it wrong and you face fines, reputational damage, or worse. So the pressure is on, but the tools most companies have are still just spreadsheets and email. Companies needed something better, a simple fix for a messy problem. That's where Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability comes in. What Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability actually is. Here's the simplest definition. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability is not a single app. It's a connected platform built on the Power Platform and Dynamics 365. Think of it as a central command center for all your sustainability data. Imagine your company's data is scattered across dozens of filing cabinets in different rooms. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability pulls all those papers out, sorts them, translates them into the same language, and gives you one clear view of what's actually happening. The platform has three main jobs: record your emissions, report on them accurately, and reduce your impact over time. Record, report, reduce. That's the cycle. Microsoft launched this in 2021 as part of their own commitment to be carbon negative by 2030. They learned a lot from managing their own sustainability data and turned that experience into a product for everyone else. It comes in two tiers. Essentials costs $4,000 per month and covers the basics: carbon, water, waste tracking, and calculations for Scope 1, 2, and some Scope 3 emissions. Premium costs $12,000 per month and unlocks the advanced stuff: full Scope 3 coverage, AI-powered insights, Copilot integration, product carbon footprint management, and more storage. So there's an option for smaller companies just getting started and for large enterprises with complex reporting needs. And it's not just about carbon anymore. The platform now covers water, waste, and social and governance data too. The full ESG picture. But carbon is where most companies start, and that's what we'll focus on. Building block 1, getting the data in. So how does this actually work? Let's walk through the three building blocks, starting with the first one: getting the data into the system. Because without data, you've got nothing to calculate, nothing to report, nothing to act on. Microsoft gives you 4 different ways to bring data in. You pick the one that fits your situation. Option A is the simplest. Excel templates. Microsoft provides pre-built templates for each data category. Electricity usage, fuel consumption, waste disposal, you name it. The template already has the right columns, the right format, the right structure. You download it, fill in your numbers, and upload it back into the system. That's it. This works great for small teams or companies just getting started. No technical skills needed. Option B is where it gets more powerful. Power Query. This is a tool built into the platform that can pull data directly from other systems. We're talking over 40 connectors: SAP, Salesforce, utility providers, you name it. Instead of exporting a CSV file, emailing it to yourself, and uploading it manually, you set up a connection once and the data flows in automatically. You can even schedule it to run on a regular basis. Every month, every week, whatever makes sense. This is the option most companies graduate to once they're past the pilot phase. Option C is partner connectors. Microsoft has pre-built integrations with companies like EcoAct and other ESG data providers. If you're already working with a sustainability data partner, chances are there's a connector that plugs straight into Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. You authenticate, configure the schedule, and data flows in without any custom work. Option D covers the edge cases. Manual data collection. Sometimes data doesn't come from a structured system you can connect to. Maybe you need to ask facility managers for electricity readings. Maybe you need HR to submit travel data. The platform has a built-in portal where you can send data requests to people inside your organization. They get an email, fill in the required information, and submit it. It lands in the system, ready for calculation. Here's the key thing about all four options. Every piece of data flows into the same standard data model. That means everything speaks the same language. No more mismatched spreadsheets. No more converting units manually. No more wondering if the numbers from different departments are even comparable. The platform handles all of that. So data is in the system. But raw numbers don't tell you anything. You need to turn them into actual emissions. Building block 2, calculating your real impact. So you've got all this raw data, 10,000 miles driven, 50,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. What does that actually mean for the climate? Activity numbers alone don't tell you much. You need to know the carbon that comes with each mile or each kilowatt hour. That's where emissions factors come in. Think of an emissions factor as a conversion rate. For every mile in a certain type of vehicle, a fixed amount of CO2 is produced. For every kilowatt hour from a specific power grid, a fixed amount of CO2 is produced. Multiply your activity data by the right factor and you get your emissions number. Microsoft built these factors right into the platform. Libraries from the EPA, the International Energy Agency, and other trusted sources are already there. The math happens automatically. You don't need to be a carbon accountant to get accurate results. The calculations cover 3 scopes. Scope 1 is the direct stuff you own or control. The fuel in your company trucks, the natural gas in your factory furnace. Scope 2 is the energy you buy, the electricity that lights your offices. Scope 3 is everything else in your value chain. Suppliers, customer travel, product disposal. All the emissions you don't directly create but are still responsible for. Here's the thing. Most companies have more emissions in Scope 3 than in their own operations. But tracking that means getting data from suppliers who may not have great systems themselves. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability handles that complexity with a value chain portal. You send data requests to suppliers and they submit their information in a structured way. The platform does all the calculation work in the background. You input the activity data, it applies the right emissions factors. Out comes your carbon footprint across all 3 scopes. What used to take weeks of manual calculation now happens automatically. Building block 3, making it actionable, the business case. So you've calculated your emissions. Now what? If the data just sits there, it's not useful. The third building block is about turning that data into action. Once your emissions are calculated, the platform gives you dashboards that show everything in real time. No more waiting months for a quarterly report. You see your carbon footprint, water usage, and waste levels right now, broken down by facility, department, or region. That's immediate visibility. It also includes AI-powered insights that automatically spot unusual patterns. A sudden spike in emissions at one factory, an unexpected jump in energy consumption. The platform flags it so you can investigate before it becomes a problem. But here's where it gets really interesting. The what-if analysis tool lets you simulate changes before you make them. Want to know what happens if you switch your fleet to electric vehicles? Run the scenario. Curious about changing suppliers? Run another scenario. You can layer up to 3 strategies in a single simulation and compare outcomes side by side. Instead of guessing, you make data-driven decisions. Scorecards and goals give you a structured way to track progress. You set a target, say reduce emissions by 20% by 2028, and the platform shows how you're tracking at every level. Department heads see their own performance, executives see the big picture. And starting in 2026, there's a new feature called the Green Ledger View. This ties carbon costs directly to financial data. You see the cost of your emissions alongside the environmental impact. For CFOs and business leaders, this is huge. It turns sustainability from a compliance cost into something you can manage like any other business metric. Now you need to report all this to regulators, investors, and customers. That's where the compliance piece comes in. Here's the thing, reporting is where most sustainability teams hit a wall. And it's not just one report, it's multiple reports for different regulators, each with its own standard, format, and deadline. The EU wants CSRD, investors want GRI, and some countries want their own local standards on top of that. The requirements keep changing, and honestly, it's a nightmare. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability includes ready-made templates for the major global frameworks. CSRD, GRI, IFRS S1 and S2, SASB, ASRS, BRSR. Pretty much every reporting standard you'd need is covered. You pick the one you're reporting against, and the platform maps your data to the right fields automatically. No manual mapping. There's also an alternate emissions feature that lets you run parallel calculations. Maybe you report under the greenhouse gas protocol for your voluntary targets, but your local regulator requires a different calculation approach. Instead of maintaining 2 separate systems, you run both calculations from the same underlying data. The platform keeps them separate and tracks which methodology was used for each. Auditors appreciate this. The data trail feature gives them end-to-end visibility into where every number came from. They click on a reported emissions figure and trace it back through the calculation to the original activity data and the source document. No more digging through email chains trying to figure out who entered what, and then there's Copilot. The AI assistant built into Sustainability Manager can generate draft disclosures, summarize findings, and answer questions in natural language. You ask, what were our total Scope 2 emissions last year? And it pulls the answer from the system. You ask it to draft a paragraph for your CSRD report, and it produces a first draft based on your actual data. What used to take 3 months of manual work now happens in a week. Emirates NBD proved that. They cut their reporting time from 3 months down to 1 week. That's a 75% reduction in effort. Real results, companies using it today. So the platform handles the data, the calculations, and the reports. But does it actually work in the real world? Let's look at some real companies using it right now. Emirates NBD, a major bank in Dubai, was drowning in manual reporting. Their sustainability team spent months each year pulling data from different departments, reconciling spreadsheets, and trying to get a clear picture. After implementing Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability, they cut their reporting time from 3 months down to 1 week. That's 75% faster. Once they had real-time visibility into their emissions, they made targeted investments like a solar plant in Turkey and reduced their emissions by nearly 50% in a single year. Elo, a Brazilian payments company, was managing 63 different databases, each with its own format and structure. After implementing the platform, they reduced manual work by 42%. That's 403 hours saved per year, basically an entire person's time freed up. They also saved about $15,000 annually in consulting costs because they no longer needed outside help to crunch their numbers. Mitsubishi Electric used the platform to refine their SUSTI smart building model. The result was unexpected. The building actually generates more energy than it uses, a 115% reduction in energy consumption. That's not just reporting, that's innovation driven by data. Worldwide Technology, an IT services company, cut the time spent on emissions calculations by up to 20%. Tasks that used to take weeks now happen with the push of a button. The common thread here is simple. These aren't tech giants with unlimited budgets. They're real companies in banking, payments, manufacturing, and IT services. And the biggest win for all of them wasn't just checking a compliance box, and it was gaining visibility into where they could make changes that save money and reduce their environmental impact at the same time. So here's the bottom line. Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability turns a slow, manual, error-prone process into something automated and accurate. It's just 3 building blocks. Get the data in, calculate your impact, report, and take action. The real value isn't just checking compliance boxes. It's about finding ways to save money while shrinking your environmental footprint. If you're a business leader or handling ESG data, start by figuring out where your sustainability data lives today. That's the single most powerful step you can take. Subscribe for more plain English breakdowns like this one, and drop a comment if something clicked.